We've got a trade to break down. The Browns have acquired Patriots running back Pierre Strong Jr. in exchange for offensive tackle Tyrone Wheatley. So welcome into an at-home edition of the Cleveland Browns Report. Not in the office today, so we're just going to film out of my kitchen. But I had to get a video out because the Browns have found their RB3 and maybe even RB2. I don't think Jerome Ford is head and shoulders above a guy who was in the same draft class last year. In fact, was even taken a round earlier than Jerome Ford. But the Browns have seen enough from the John Kelly, Jordan Wilkins, Dimitri Felton preseason show and decided we had to go out and get a more serious running back, which the funny part is the video that I was going to have go out today that was actually just starting to really get working on before the trade went down was all about roster projections. And for RB3 on the Browns, I literally had TBD, because I just did not think anyone on that roster was actually going to get a 53-man roster spot. So the Browns acquire, I think, a pretty good player in Pierre Strong. We'll kind of break down himself in just a moment. For offensive tackle Tyrone Wheatley, who, speaking of my roster projection, I didn't even have Tyrone Wheatley making my 53-man roster. I don't know if I was way off, but for the Browns to acquire a 53-man roster player like Pierre Strong for a guy that I thought was bubble player at best, that's definitely a pretty good deal for Andrew Berry. It's a player-for-player swap, so you're just going to take on the rest of Pierre Strong Jr.'s contract, and he's entering year 2 of 4 years of his rookie deal. It's a 4th-round pick out of South Dakota State, so we're not talking any big money or anything like that, but a depth piece for the Patriots. They get maybe a swing tackle in Wheatley, and the Browns get their RB3, and like I said, Jerome Ford has missed all the preseason with a hamstring injury. We hardly saw him at all last year. I think the Browns sort of understood, like, you know what, we gave it the month of August. We gave it 4 preseason games. We never got to see Jerome Ford play. We never really saw John Kelly or Dimitri Felton emerge from that backfield as someone we could trust, whether it's in an RB2 role, if Jerome Ford is still going to be a bit banged up, or if Nick Chubb were to go down for a game or two and we want to balance the workload, right? We don't want to give Jerome Ford all the carries that Nick Chubb was going to get. We want to go to a 60-40 approach to band-aid ourselves until Chubb could return. I just don't think they saw John Kelly or Dimitri Felton filling that void. So for that reason, the Browns went out and they got Pierre Strong Jr. So let's get to know Pierre Strong Jr. a little bit better. Like I said, he was a 4th-round draft pick last year out of South Dakota State. He was one of the best players in FCS football. He had an incredible 40-time 4.37 40-yard dash. So he's got the big play factor. He's got the explosiveness. This is not a in-between the tackles type of back. This is someone who is dying to bounce it outside, turn on the jets, and beat the cornerback to the corner, beat the linebacker, beat the edge rusher, and get around him. So they get a very speedy back, which is nice to complement Nick Chubb because that's not really Nick Chubb's forte necessarily. I'm not quite sure if Pierre Strong is really going to bring a whole bunch of passing threats. Last year, he had 10 carries, 100 yards, and 1 touchdown. So far in the preseason, this year, 14 carries for 52 yards. So not a ton of tape or big stats out there on him. He's 5'11", 212 pounds. The Browns are acquiring a guy that can compete for the RB2 and lock down the RB3 job, because if Jerome Ford is going to miss some more time, which 2 weeks from today, the Browns play the Bengals, the way Kevin Stefanski has talked about Ford, he's made it sound like he could be available if needed. But let me know, are the Browns done making roster moves? That is the question I want to toss your way. Of course, the entire conversation in Cleveland right now surrounds and just circumnavigates number 3, Cade York, which I'm a little proud of myself. We've gone 4.5 minutes-ish without talking about Cade York. But let me know, are the Browns done making roster moves, or are we going to see some more roster moves made? Give me your thoughts down in the comment section. I don't think they're done. I think you might see Cleveland be a bit active on the waiver wire, especially for a new special teams return man. Maybe they want to try Pierre Strong in that role. He's got the speed for it for sure, so maybe that could be, killing 2 birds with 1 stone. But I would not be surprised if Cleveland goes out and they add another speedy wide receiver, kind of like they did last year with Jalen Darden in December. Maybe the lesson learned in this case is let's not wait until December, right? Because unfortunately, the Browns are right back to where they were a year ago today. No Jakeem Grant as your return guy. Jakeem Grant could be lost for the season, suffered a torn patella, no, not torn, but broken patella, something to that tune. Might be lost for the year, but definitely lost for the foreseeable future. So how are they going to do things differently? Because last year, it was not a good solution of revolving door at return man. I don't know if the solution is, hey, let's just take advantage of the new kickoff return rules, and we're going to fair catch it every time. And we're just going to go out to the 25. And we're going to cut our losses, and maybe sure sometimes we would have bounced it out for a 30-yard return, maybe a 35-yard return. But there are lots of instances where the return man doesn't even get to the 25, and the offense starts at their own 21-yard line. So maybe that is the solution this year is, hey, we're just not going to have an explosive kick returner. Offense, get used to starting at the 25-yard line. That's the best option we have here at this point. Okay, before we really get down and kind of wrap up the show with some more details and whatnot, make sure to subscribe. If you are coming across this channel for the first time, we have a full studio with a bunch of cool graphics and things like that. So I'm not usually in my kitchen, but you're getting the gist of the way the Browns Report operates. And that is when breaking news happens, we make sure to keep you guys in the know. And we are your go-to spot for all things Cleveland Browns news and rumors. Speaking of the Browns trade where they move on from Wheatley, right? The Cleveland half of the trade, if you will. Let me just kind of run through the offensive line and who I have making the 53-man roster after this trade, which for me, it didn't change at all. Jed Wills, Joel Petonio, Ethan Posick, Wyatt Teller, Jack Conklin, James Hudson, DeJuan Jones, Michael Dunn, he started at left guard yesterday. He's getting to make the roster. Luke Whippler, we're at 9. I think Nick Harris makes it, but also, I don't know if you guys saw the news yesterday, the Bucs starting center, Ryan Jensen, who got hurt last year in training camp, and remember it was all about like J.C. Treader to Tampa. He unfortunately just never recovered from that knee injury, and it looks to be like a career-ending one. I'm sure the Bucs have, put some plan in place because they didn't have Jensen all preseason long, but maybe they go out and trade for Nick Harris, right? I could see Nick Harris being used as a trade chip because on one hand, in the Browns' eyes, he was going to be their starting center last year. So maybe another team goes, hey, we know that Nick Harris just doesn't have a spot on your roster because you had a breakout Ethan Posick season, but we think Nick Harris is still a good football player. We need a starting center. You need a wide receiver. You just did a player-for-player swap with New England. How about we orchestrate one with ourselves, whether it's the Bucs or another team in need of a center? I'm not really sure which teams those could be, but I think that is one to watch for. But my offensive line depth chart ultimately does not change. For the running back room, we'll kind of wrap it up here. Nick Chubb, Jerome Ford, and Pierre Strong all make the 53-man roster. Demetric Felton is an interesting case because if Jakeem Grant is gone for the year, they might have to hold on to Felton to do kick returns, right? So I could see maybe Felton taking Jakeem Grant's spot in the wide receiver room, and he ends up making the roster one way or another. So we got a lot of roster moves being made from now until Tuesday, 4 o'clock Eastern. So make sure you have your notifications on because when roster cuts happen and whatnot, we are going to get videos out to you guys. We're going to get all the information, and I don't want you to miss a single thing. So make sure you subscribe and turn your notifications on. And then also, I got to pick a card. One second, I got cards right here. Don't go anywhere. Where are my cards? This is bad radio. Here it is. I found my cards. Okay, I'm back. My boss is going to get very mad at me for that one. Okay, you have to pick a card though. This is my home deck of cards that my dog chewed up once. So at this point, only the OGs. You see, it's my grandma's birthday deck of cards, and my dog chewed up the top. All right, pick a card. Let me know which card you're going with, and that will do it for us on today's show. I'm going to go with the 6 of Diamonds. 9 of Spades. 9 of Spades. It's kind of backwards. I promise you it's a 9 of Spades. All right, we will sign off. We will see everyone later. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday. The Browns acquire Pierre Strong Jr., running back from New England, for offensive tackle Tyrone Wheatley Jr.